stranger to our FCRI family, I take this delightful opportunity to formally introduce our resource person for today, Ms. Shamli MS, a gold medalist for BSc Honors Forestry. She is the recipient of the prestigious Inspire Scholarship for undergraduate program by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. Due to her passion for better ecology, she continued at Kerala Agricultural University for her master's in forestry with specialization in wildlife science. Her research focused on amphibian diversity in prominent agroforestry systems in Kerala. After MSc and a year's experience in teaching and wildlife conservation related citizen science projects, she went on to bag the coveted British Council India Scholarship to pursue her second master's in agroforestry and food security from Bangor University, United Kingdom. She is now doing an internship at United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. On a personal front, from knowing Shamli Garu for the past 10 years and having been an associate for many joint research projects, I have observed two traits to stand out in her. One, consistent hard work, and two, a passion for nature. Drawing a parallel, in case you have a passion for forestry and a willful mind to put relentless efforts, we believe you can do wonders in academia. With that short introduction, I request Shamli Garu to begin the session. Students can clarify their doubts at the Q&A session at the end of this talk.
Thank you so much, Arjun sir, for the wonderful intro. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, yeah. So hi, effervescent young people out there. I'm so happy to exchange my knowledge to all of you about the postgraduate studies in Europe. And without any delay, I think we can directly jump on to the today's topic. I would like to share my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so yes. So postgraduate studies in Europe. So I would like to tell you to focus on this image, that is career. It is hard if we choose a career, we have to come back to another career. It is very hard. You may have to come back and start from another point. So when you choose a career, it should be like you should really think about choosing a career because it's really hard. And if you want to stop a career and if you want to come back and start again, it takes time. So whatever career you're going to choose, be wise, choose carefully, and choose what is something which you want to do. A career which is apt for a person may not be the same way that you want to pursue. So a career is actually subjective from people to people. So when you choose a career, be wise. Otherwise, it's gonna mess up with the whole life. Talking about career, today's session is dealing with academic career. Don't think academic career is an easy task or an easy career to pursue. It is one of the toughest career. It is a risky career. And it's not a certain career that after completing your master's or after completing your PhD or postdoc, you will be guaranteed with a good job. It is not like that. It doesn't work like that. Academic career is uncertain, but you have a lot of opportunities. In that opportunities, you have to grab the opportunities, you have to go behind the opportunities, you have to excel yourself, and you may have to be competent enough to get into a successful academic career. So it's going to be tough. The journey is tough. There will be ups and downs. So you should have a right attitude if you want to stick on to an academic career. Talking about post graduations, whatever be the post graduation degree that you want to pursue, think carefully whether you want to stick on to an academic career or not. Don't take a post-graduation for the sake of getting a PG. Please don't do that. You are actually destroying someone else's opportunity in that case. And I want to again trust on the fact that it is a risky career, it is an uncertain career. You have to grab behind the opportunities. You should have the zest to learn every day. The learning process is not going to stop in an academic career. You have to learn throughout the life. So if you want to choose academic career, go for it and grab the opportunities, work for it, and I hope one day you will get success. But you should be ready to accept the failures. You should be ready with a right attitude to go behind the opportunities. In my case, I have chosen academic career by knowing all these facts, how risky, how uncertain it is. Coming to abroad, why abroad? It is a very interesting question. Each and every one of you who are interested to go abroad may have a motivation, right? Will have a particular reason why you want to go abroad. Maybe it's for traveling, maybe to expose to the international culture, maybe for the living standards, what they have. It's not only that come to your mind when you go abroad. There are a lot of other stuffs. One is definitely the employment opportunities. I would like to say after graduating a degree from abroad university, nobody will guarantee you to have a job or to get a job there. There is no guarantee that you will get a job after completing a master's degree or a PhD or a postdoc. It doesn't work like that. There will be opportunities, but we have to go behind and we have to grab these opportunities. We have to update ourselves, we have to excel ourselves, and we have to compete with a larger audience now. We have to compete with the international people. We are not restricted towards only the people in a particular state or in a particular country. We are going to compete with people from all over the world. So there are employment opportunities, especially in case of forestry field. There are employment opportunities. There are opportunities which we may have not heard in our country or in our state. There will be dozens of opportunities. There will be millions of opportunity actually. But the thing is that we should be right enough for that job. So it takes time for you to get into the skills and to excel yourself. So one of the attractive features is the employment opportunity, but we have to be in our toes to get into a particular job or a particular opportunity. Second is international exposure. This everyone will know, everyone will be excited when they are ready to go abroad. It is the international exposure. We are dealing with people from all over the world. We will learn a lot, we will unlearn a lot. So during this experience, the learning and unlearning is happening simultaneously. So the international exposure will let you know how strong we are, how weak we are, because we are with a global audience, or we are with a global students. So we know what are the skills they have, what are the skills they don't have, what are the skills they excel. So we can analyze ourselves in a global platform, how strong or how weak our particular skill is. That is really important. We should know ourselves, right? What are our strengths and what are our weakness? So that knowing part is really important to move forward in an academic career. Gain practical knowledge. The education system in abroad is totally different from what we have in India, especially in Europe. I could say Europe, America, Australia. The Asian styles are somewhat similar, but when you go beyond that Asian style, the education system is totally different. In Indian context, at least a fair amount of our system is dealing with memory based or is memory based. Whereas when you go abroad, especially in Europe, memory based education is not a big thing, or memory based education is not even considered there. Everything is actually based on the practical knowledge, the application of knowledge, how well we write, how well we think. So these are the major things that is integrated into their educational system. So we have to think critically when we have to write critically. So that is a basic thing. Critical thinking is the basic thing or the basic difference which I felt when I shifted from an Indian context to a UK context. Nothing is memory based. I never wanted to, or I didn't wanted to use anything from my memory during my 1 year long education period in UK. Everything was practical knowledge, application of practical knowledge. Everything was based on our critical thoughts, how well we can execute our thoughts into our writings. So how well you can write. Writing skill is a very important thing that you will get when you have an abroad education. Thinking style, the critical thinking style. In order to write critically, you have to think critically. So that critical thinking style is somewhat we will learn when you go abroad. Or at least in my case, I learned the critical thinking from abroad. And it's not only to the educational system, we will apply that critical thinking to each and every aspects of our life. And that is actually a lifelong skill that you're going to learn. I assure in that case. Then developing valuable career skills like soft skills. Since we are applying all the knowledge, what we have, we are going to apply all the skills, whatever be the small, starting from the small skills to the more advanced skill in case of analysis or using the softwares or organizing ourselves or organizing the things. They are very adaptable or adapting, and we will learn a lot of skills. And we are not only having that skills in our brain, we are actually executing that skills, or we are actually practically using that skills into the current situation. So the knowledge, the educational system is totally different. We may need some time to adapt to that educational system, but once you crack into that educational system, it's gonna be wonderful. You won't forget that experience, and you will have a lot of skills in your hand to sell yourself. So having an abroad degree is actually a selling point for you. It is actually how you could market in front of a global audience. Traveling is one thing. While we travel, we learn, we experience a lot of things. Being independent and responsible, when you are in another country, there is no one to take care of you. So you have to be on your toes from simple things to the most complicated things. So whatever be the living standard, whatever be the lifestyle, no one is there to help you. You have to be independent, right? Starting from cooking to how to look after like when you live alone, you have to look after the whole things like the bank details, the bills, everything. And you will earn money. So everything will be controlled and coordinated by you. So you will have a much more disciplined, a much more independent, much more responsible life. You will become a responsible citizen in that case. Development of soft skills, not only the career advance, the softwares or career skills that you're going to learn, you learn a lot of soft skills during the process because you have to interact with people. The way of interaction really depend upon the culture. The culture in one country is different from other country. So when you may have, even this simple thing is and when I take an example, when you write an email in people out there in UK or in Europe, especially in UK, the email, how you draft an email is quite different. You will start with informally and you will get into the formal matter and you will end informally. They don't like the formal pattern, like respected sir or respected madam. I never received or never saw an email to that place with respected sir or respected madam. They will start with our name, dear Shamili or dear Arjun or whatever is. So it's like it's the culture is totally different. They talk very nicely. They wanted to interact with people. They interact very nicely. So from that interactions, we will learn a lot of soft skills which are actually important to our life. Soft skills and also the life skills. Not only the soft skills, also the life skills you're going to develop. That is for sure. And an exposure to a global culture and expand your life perceptions. It's going to change your life perceptions if you're really into it. There is no need that if you go for an abroad country or another for education, there is no requirement that you have to adopt that culture, but we will learn how to adapt to different cultures. So it's not about adoption, it is about adaptations or acclimatization to particular culture. So that is another important thing that you will experience when you are having your abroad education. It's a different style. It's not only gonna enhance your academic skills or career skill, it's gonna enhance your life. It's gonna enhance your perceptions about life and the totality at a holistic development. I guess it's a holistic development of a person. There is immense chance, immense opportunity to develop your personality to a much higher standard when you pursue an abroad education. It's not only the pros, there are cons, and one of the major cons is the cultural shock. Since we are coming from a different background and entering into a very totally different culture, there will be cultural shock. It takes time for us to adapt to that particular environment, to that particular culture, to that particular weather. So all this happens when you move from one country to another country. It's possible, right? Even when you move across the states, there are cultural shocks that will hit you. And if we move from one country to another country, again, there will be cultural shock. So it takes time for you to adapt to that, all the cultural setup of a particular area. So from my experience, I almost took 3 to 4 months to culturally adapt to that particular environment. I could acclimatize with the weather very easily, but I couldn't acclimatize with or adapt with the particular culture. But it took 3 to 4 months to settle down in that country, to know the people, and to jump into the opportunities. So that is one thing, it takes time. Another thing that I have to tell is the job opportunities. One of the advantages is also the job opportunities, and one of the cons is also job opportunities, because here we are competing with international people. We have people from all over the world, and most of the people will be excelled in their field. So the competition is tight, but the opportunities are more. So that is one thing that we have to keep in mind. Another thing is language. If you go to an English speaking country, it is not a concern. But when you go to other countries like Germany, Denmark, or Spain, the problem is that they have a native language, and the local people will be speaking only that native language. Even though if they know English, sometimes they may not be ready to speak with you in English. They are reluctant to use English in their daily life conversations. So that is a problem when you go to some other countries where they don't speak English as a primary or a like a language. They in the university all they will speak English, but they will be communicating with you in emails and everything in English. Coming to the other case, when you want to interact with the local people, when you're really exposed to that culture, it may be a bit difficult. So you may have to learn the language. So these are the cons that I personally come across while I was doing this abroad education. One was cultural shock. I took time. Job opportunities. I have applied to a like less or about 50 jobs. I have applied to 50 jobs, say 50, and I have received the rejections. And it's a fact, because I have actually counted the rejection emails. I have received around the 45 rejections. I got only through 5 things. So I was actually depressed. That is why I wanted to say you have to be ready to accept the failure. Sometimes you may not have accepted, or you may not have come across the failure from your country, but when you go abroad, you are competing with an international people. Sometimes we think we are good at something, but we may not be. So there is a high amount of realization when you are out of your comfort zone. Abroad education is actually breaking your comfort zone. You are going to break your comfort zone. Your comfort zone will be shattered. You will be exposed, and now there you will acclimatize yourself, being independent, being responsible, and you will acclimatize to that. Once you are done with your acclimatization, you have a long way to go. That's what I experienced from my personal experience, and what I heard from others who have experienced the same. So you have to be ready, but it's gonna be the ride is gonna be tough, but you will definitely enjoy, even though it is a tight, tough journey. Coming to forestry sector, some of the topics which is highly popular in this decade is forest certification, forest management, especially the forest restoration part, plantation forestry, agroforestry, international timber trade, life cycle analysis, MBA, data science, biotechnology or forensics, conservation science. So it depends upon different regions. So one of the most prominent forestry research is actually happening in Germany. Germany is a country where a lot of forestry fields are undergoing research and they have massive funding in forestry research. There are student exchange programs with Indian universities for Germany. So, but when you take about like in a situation like UK, the more importance they are giving us to conservation science and forest management. That is a major area. Coming to USA, they give importance to plantation forestry, international timber trade, forest certification, etc. When you come to Germany, Italy, Sweden, and all, they give importance to the agroforestry, they give importance to the biotechnology, forensic part. So it depends on the country, but these are the major subject areas which are in limelight as of now. Since it is a decade of forest restoration, restoration is also getting high demand, especially in research projects and small courses like PG diplomas, etc. So coming to your PG programs, post-graduation consists of PG diploma is also there. That is one option. Another thing is MSc Taught and MSc Research. These are two different programs. MSc Taught is a one-year program. And during this MSc Taught program, you are going to submit a dissertation, which is around a 6-month project work, as we all submit during our UG program. MSc Research is a 2-year program where you will submit a thesis and the work will be for 1 year. So it is going to be a 1-year long work and you're going to submit a thesis. And dissertation and thesis is different in the case of the number of words they use. Dissertation is short, thesis is a longer one. It's based on the number of words. And since MSc Taught is a 6 months research, they wanted you to submit a dissertation, and MSc Research is a 1-year long research. They wanted you to submit a thesis. Then you have the doctoral degree, postdocs, and other PG diplomas available. So most of our graduates who is going from India are either going for an MSc program or an MSc research program. And most of the scholarships are actually available for MSc Taught program. That is 1-year MSc. Most of the scholarship that is available in India as of now is mainly for this 1-year MSc program. And you have to take care of that. If you want to do MSc research, sometimes the popular scholarship may not be available for an MSc research, which is a 2-year program. So be careful while you are choosing the scholarship. Just know what is the right degree that they are going to offer. So how to begin? It's not an exaggeration, but if you want to go, if you want to study, if you want to pursue your abroad education, you should start at least 10 to 12 months before the time of your admission. So for example, 1 year before you have to start, you have to make your preferred universities. You can choose your universities actually. You can look into the QS World Ranking, which is one of the finest world ranking. And there will be rank for most of the universities that you could come across in Europe. There will be subject-based ranking. So you can look into subject-based ranking. You can look into region-wise ranking. Whatever be, you can filter the ranking. But check the QS World Ranking and make a list of universities that you would like to pursue in the subject of forestry. It will be coming under agriculture and allied science or agriculture and forestry. Then you can screen the courses which is offered in that particular university. Once the course is also screened, then you can look into scholarships. Sometimes some of the universities will provide you specific scholarship for a specific program to a specific national. So in some of the university, for example, I will talk about it later. But in Cambridge University, there is a scholarship available. There is a single scholarship, one scholarship available for Indian and especially to a South Indian. So there will be university specific, course specific scholarship, which may not be available in the common websites, which you can only go into the university portal, through your university portal. So you have to go to university, you have to screen your course, and from there you can check whether the scholarship is available or a scholarship is applicable to that particular course or not. In some other cases, you can directly approach professors. If you want to do an MSc research, which is at that 2-year program, you can directly approach the professors in the particular university by looking into their profile, either through LinkedIn or through Google Scholar or through Twitter, wherever their profile, and you can see whether their research interest is matching with your research interest. And then you can directly approach the professor through email and you can get into a particular university. There is also one chance like that by interacting with the professors. Sometimes a particular scholarship may not be available for the time you are asking, but if you're in contact with that professor may notify the other opportunities which is coming around. So that is a good way to start if you're looking especially into USA part. This interaction with professors is very important to get a post graduation in USA and sometimes in Canada also. That is one way they deal with, because we don't have much scholarships available to USA. That is one thing that you have to keep in mind for MSc, not for the PhD, but for masters, scholarships are very restricted towards the USA. So just keep in mind, you may have tuition fee waiver, but full stipends are rare. That is what I meant by scholarship, full stipend. Then you can know about a university by looking into the alumni group in Facebook and all. They will provide you all the necessary help for that particular university. To get admitted to that particular university, they will help you. So these are some of the things that we may not come across when we are going to apply for a university in India. So that is why I have given a proper channel, like you can screen your university, screen your course, then decide, then check whether that course is coming under a particular scholarship or do they have a special scholarship. Check for that, then you can go with your process. Otherwise, directly interact with the professors and get to know what are the research opportunities that is coming there. Or you can also discuss with the alumni groups in Facebook and other social media platform to know more about the educational system prevalent in that particular university. Coming to intakes, especially in Europe, you have mainly two intakes, fall intake and spring intake. Rarely there is another intake which is known as summer intake, which happens during April. But most of the universities will offer the fall intake, and spring intake depends on the university. And why there is a difference is fall intake is the popular one. So most of the courses will be open during the fall intake. There are courses which are not open during the spring intake, and there are some other courses which are specifically open during the spring intake. And coming to scholarship, almost all the scholarships are available only for the fall intake. You won't get a scholarship for a spring intake. It is very difficult to get a scholarship for a spring intake. So in that case, the competition is actually higher in fall intake and competition is lesser intake in case of spring intake. Those who didn't get a scholarship or those who are trying to get an abroad education by applying educational loan or something like that, usually they prefer the spring intake because competition will be lesser. It is easy for you to get a university offer letter, and that is why they are preferring spring intake. But if you're looking to a scholarship, probably almost all the scholarships are going for the fall intake, which happens during August to September. So keep in mind, if you're going to prepare for a scholarship, definitely it will be coming under fall intake. If it is for August or September, then August and September of this year, then you have to start your preparation at least by September of the previous year. So you have to start your preparation before if you want to go for a fall intake. So it is not an exaggeration. It may take 10 months to 12 months. So you may have to start preparing 1 year before. That is the thing about the intakes. Coming to the next topic that I wanted to talk about is when you apply for a scholarship, you have to be ready with all this stuff. So the thing is that if I get admitted to 2021 fall, if I'm going to a particular university or my class start on August 2021, The scholarship for that August 2021 will start calling on around September 2020 or September to December 2020. They will start the scholarship call by September to December 2020. So I have to be ready with all these stuff if I wanted to get admitted during August 2021. So we should have an updated and attractive CV. We may need an English language proficiency test. We need a passionate statement of purpose, 3 letters of recommendation, and academic records like transcripts and certificates, and our passport. All these things should be ready 10 months before. That is the thing. That is the major thing that you have to keep in your mind. So if you want to get admitted to that particular year, you may have all these things ready on the year before, and you have to apply for the scholarship call. Then it takes around 7 to 8 months to complete that scholarship process and to get admitted to that particular university. So it is a time-taking process. Coming to CV, this is a general idea. You may get a much detailed sessions on CV and SOP. This is a general idea. Usually we will have a 2-tone colored CV. The chronological order will be reversed, and it will be ideal if we have less gaps between our educations or whatever be the career progress. There should not be a big break in your career. It is actually a disadvantage for you while you're competing with a lot of people. So if you don't have that much gap, that is an advantage over the other people. And the very important point is you have to tailor the CV according to the objective. If you're sending a CV to a particular university, to a particular course, if you're interested in a particular course, you have to tailor your CV, which is applicable to that particular course. If you're interested in conservation science, the experiences or whatever things that you are entering into the CV should be related to that course, conservation science, or should show the passion towards that particular subject. So we may have to tailor our CV accordingly, especially according to the course that we want to pursue. And another important thing that I want to make sure is that CV for a particular country may not be applicable to another country. The CV format for each country in Europe is different. The CV format applicable in UK is different from that in Denmark and that in Germany. So generally in European Union, there is a general format that is a link that I have given here. It is a Europass CV. Europass CV is a common format that is used generally in European Union to the countries coming in the European Union. In case of UK, they prefer 1-page CV, which is also known as resume, and they prefer that 1-page one. Maximum they go for 2-page. But in some cases, in some other country, they may take 2 to 4 pages. So it depends. So you have to check. You can just check this Europass CV format, and you can just also check to the country which you're applying. You can check the CV format for that particular country. Some country, they require a photograph on their CV. For some other country, they don't require a photograph. For some country, if you're writing about the language that you know, for example, if you're writing about English, if you're writing about your language proficiency in English, they will have a standard table how to rate yourself in English if you don't have an IELTS score. So all these things should be taken care of while you're preparing the CV. So CV is country specific. You have to check whether that a particular CV format that you're preparing is applicable to that particular country or not. It is very important. It is not an exaggeration. It is a very important one since you're competing with the more people there. And SOP is actually a selling point. You are selling yourself, you are marketing yourself to that particular people. So usually when you apply for a scholarship, you may have to prepare 2 SOP. One SOP is for the scholarship and one SOP is towards the university to get the offer letter. So the statement of purpose, SOP is statement of purpose. So statement of purpose to a particular university, to a particular program will be different from the statement of purpose for availing you the scholarship. So clearly in a statement of purpose, you should focus on why they have to select you, why you should be the one to get that scholarship, or why you should be the one to get that offer letter from a particular university. So that is a major point. You have to market and sell yourself, but be aware that you should not repeat the same things that you have given in your CV into your SOP. SOP and CV are two different things. Okay. CV, you have to be very clear, very specific, concise, and brief. And in SOP, you can get bit detail into it. Don't just copy the CV things into the SOP. It is different. The marking for SOP is different, marking for CV is different. So in SOP, you literally have to convince the reader that you are the one who should be selected for that particular program. You have to sell your key points there, your selling points there, why you are different from other, or why you are apt for this position. And one more thing I have to keep in mind is that the long-term career plans, it would be always nice to have a statement of purpose with a short-term career plan and a long-term career plan. As a student in UG, you can say your short-term career plan is to secure a PG admission in an abroad university. You could say like that. And in a long-term career plan, you could write either you have to become an international development worker or a researcher in a particular lab or something like that. That is a long-term career plan. You should have this short-term and long-term career plan. And to some of the scholarships, they are actually saying that you wanted to return to your home country and you may have to serve your home country at least for 1 year or a 2 year. In that case, if you're preparing an SOP, clearly you have to mention your long-term career plan, which is actually benefiting your home country. So that is an advantage. At least in the last line, you have to say, I have to become this and this to serve my country, or I have to improve how you will improve your country by getting this education from the abroad. So that is also a selling point when you are preparing an SOP for a scholarship. So I think that is pretty much about SOP and CV. And in both the case, it should not be long. SOP, the ideal length is 1 page. Maximum, it can be 1.5 page. So it is a very difficult task. It is not as easy as we see. It's around 600 to 700 words, but it should be concise. It should have all your selling points. It should not be a mere replica of your CV. So you have to take care of the SOP very well, because that is one of the deciding points, whether they have to offer you a scholarship or not. Along with your CV, SOP is another deciding point, how well you have presented yourself to an international audience. Coming to the language proficiency test, most of the scholarships in UK doesn't require a language proficiency score. What they ask is, we need to present a document, a paper, usually from university, by the registrar, saying that this person has done this course in the medium of instruction for that particular course was English. So something like a letter. That is the one that is preferred for most of the scholarship. Or in other case, sometimes they will accept the transcript. The transcript, inside the transcript, usually it is written as the medium of instruction is English. In our case, it was written like that. So for me, I only wanted to submit that transcript page for my English proficiency, because it is written that the medium of instruction was English. So sometimes transcript, that page of transcript will be fine, but sometimes they require an authority to say like that. So usually it is, they ask for the register to issue a document saying that this particular person has undergone this course and the medium of instruction for this course was English. That is one case. But in some cases, they may require the English language proficiency test like IELTS, International English Language Testing System. So the validity for IELTS, if you have written IELTS, the IELTS score will be valid only for 2 years after the publication of your results. And the score is from 1 to 9. You should have high score. There is minimum score also, but if you have a higher score, when you come into a competition, you have 1 foot ahead. So that is the thing about the IELTS score. And this is the most applicable English language proficiency test in Europe. But in some areas like France, Germany and all, they prefer the TOEFL, Test of English as a Foreign Language, which the score ranges from 0 to 120. It is also applicable in United States and Canada, the TOEFL one. But in some European countries, TOEFL is also accepted. Another is PTE Academic. This is Pearson Test of English Academic, which is actually approved globally, but it is particularly asked in New Zealand and Australia. So PTE academic is usually a test which is taken by people who is going to Australia or New Zealand. For common test in USA, for USA is GRE, Graduate Record Examinations. It is valid for 5 years. The maximum score is 320. If you want to get into a particular, if you want to get into a reputed institute in USA, you may have to have at least minimum score should be 304. So this is the most common course or the most common English language proficiency test accepted in USA. When you talk about Europe, the most common is IELTS, but in Germany and France, the TOEFL is also accepted. And these are some of the scholarships which randomly come across the British Council IELTS scholarship. We will talk about some of them in detail. In lakhs, Charles Wallace Indian Trust Scholarship, Great Scholarship, British Council India Scholarship, Commonwealth Scholarship and Fellowships, Chevening Scholarship, Global Korea Scholarship, Oxford India Center Scholarship, Erasmus Mundus Scholarship, Research Council UK Scholarship, Fulbright Nehru Research Fellowship in USA, DAD Scholarship in Germany, Netherlands Fellowship Program, Italian Government Scholarships, New Zealand Commonwealth Scholarship, Chinese Government Scholarships, and Queen Elizabeth Commonwealth Scholarship to Canada. So all these scholarships are specific to particular region, and sometimes it may be specific to particular university for that particular year. So sometimes great scholarship will be available for only selected universities in UK and for a selected course. So they are very specific and it changed from one year to the other. So we are going to the most common scholarship applied by the forestry graduates in Europe. And first one is Erasmus Mundus Scholarship. I think this is the most common scholarship that all may have come across. It is a fully funded scholarship. They will provide the tuition fee. You will get the travel expense. Travel expense means you will have the flight towards the flight will be there. The flight expense will be covered. The visa expense will be covered. And there will be stipend around €1,000 per month. So the most common courses, the Erasmus, coming under Erasmus Mundus, taken by forestry graduates are Sufinoma, Sustainable Forest Management, Sutro4, Sustainable Tropical Forestry, Med4, Mediterranean Forestry, and there are other lot of courses like flood risk management, marine, aquaculture, and beyond mineral science, hydrology, etc. It depends. So the first three are the most common courses taken by the forestry graduates in Erasmus Mundus. But nowadays, forestry graduates are also diversifying their choice in Erasmus Mundus due to high competition. There are other courses also like European forestry is another one which I haven't mentioned. Another course is European forestry, which is coming under Erasmus Mundus. They all have this tuition fee, travel expense, and stipend. This is one of the attractive scholarship available to the Europe. And the program is actually 2 years. You are getting 2 degrees, 2 masters, 1 master's from each university. And there is a mobility pathway for Erasmus Mundus, for especially for Sufinoma and Sutro4. There are about 4 countries, that is UK, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, and sometimes Italy also. So you can choose one university from one country, like you can choose one from Italy and one from UK, or you can choose one from Sweden and one from Germany, or you can choose one from Denmark and one from UK. So like that, you have to choose 2 countries, you have to choose 2 universities for one particular program. So finally, you will get 2 master's certificates, 2 master's degree, 1 from each. So the thesis will be done on the second year. So thesis will be done in the university which you have chosen for your second year. So that is how Erasmus Mundus work. And the application starts, I think the application has already been called for this year for the fall of 2022. And it happens during October and January. So if you want to apply for this scholarship, you should have all the things that I have already told, like SOP should be there, recommendation letter should be there. I forgot to mention about recommendation letter. So if you are a student, you can get the recommendation letter from your teacher or your personal tutor. If you have employed at least for 3 months in a particular under a particular employer, you could get 1 recommendation letter from the employer and 1 recommendation letter from your teacher. So that is a recommendation letter. And the English language requirement, you should fulfill the English language requirement. So if you want to apply this Erasmus Mundus scholarship, either you should have your IELTS score by now, or you should have that above that mentioned paper from the register of the university regarding your medium of instruction. So that should be ready. You should have a CV, especially for Erasmus Mundus. Most of them will follow Europass CV. And because that CV will be considered in both the universities. So Europass is a somewhat general one. Then you should be ready with your degree certificate and transcript. Okay. So these are the requirements for Erasmus Mundus scholarship. Coming to Chevening one, this is actually a scholarship applicable for the working people. If you have worked in your home country at least for 2 years, if you have 2 years of work experience, then you can apply for Chevening scholarship. Chevening scholarship is applicable in India and Africa, I guess. I think it's India and Africa. So the competition will be between the Indians and the African people. It is a 1-year master's program, fully funded program. That means you will have the tuition fee and you will have your monthly stipend. The application time is August to November. It varies in different years. So last time it was due to COVID, the scholarship deadlines were actually extended beyond what was expected. So it depends. So you have to check like in a regular manner to know about the application deadline. So one of the criteria here is the 2 years of work experience, and another criteria is that you have to return to your home country at least for 2 years after a degree is awarded. So if you want to stay in that particular country, if you want to stay in UK, you cannot, because after your degree you have to come back to your home country. You have to serve your home country at least for 2 years, and then only you can go back to UK. So that is one of the eligibility criteria, one of the criteria for Chevening scholarship. You should agree to that criteria. Another thing is that when you are applying for the scholarship, at least you should have received 3 eligible UK university offer letter. From 3 universities, you should have an offer letter saying that this university is ready to accept you as a student, at least 3. So that is also a criteria. And especially in Chevening case, you need IELTS. The other thing won't work out. You need IELTS. Coming to this one is Inlax Shivadasini Foundation. This is a particular 1-year master's program. I'm sorry, I think there is a small spelling mistake in your slide. It is field. 1-year master's in the field of conservation science and practice. So it is for conservation science, wildlife conservation, biodiversity conservation, etc. It is a fully funded program. You will get tuition fees, stipend, and travel allowance. And application is from January to April. University offer letter. That means you for applying for this scholarship, you may have to get an offer letter from the university. So what you want to do, you want to first screen the university. You have to take a particular course which is related to conservation science and practice. Then you have to apply directly to the university. For application, you don't have to pay any fee. You just have to apply it. You may have to upload your CV. You may have to upload the transcript or certificate. You may have to upload a statement of purpose, or the universities will have certain questions. So you may have to answer that questions, like why you prefer this university, why you prefer this course, why we have to select you. There will be questions like that. You may have to answer those questions. And once that all finished, after 3 or maybe it takes 2 to 4 weeks, they will inform you whether they can offer you a letter or not. Once that offer letter is given or they have accepted and you get a university offer letter, you can apply for this foundation scholarship. Okay. So, and there is another criteria. The one should not have another degree from abroad. That means you should be a fresh candidate. It should not be one already have an abroad qualification. IELTS is must. So the other option is not valid here. And here also, along with Chevening scholarship, here also they are expecting a return. They are expected to have a return to your home country. This is Felix scholarship. It is provided by Oxford University. It is again a fully funded program. Applications start from December to Jan. The conditions are same. You should have either a first class UG or PG in India. university, one of the UK university. So in this case, it should be the Oxford University. They should give you a university offer letter for a particular program. You should have your IELTS score, and you should agree with the fact that you are going to return to your home country. So this is another one. So in this case, if you want to apply for a university, sometimes they will ask for IELTS score. So even for that, if you're applying for that university, you may need the IELTS score or the transcript page that I already mentioned. Next is another two scholarship. One is British Council India Scholarship, 70th Anniversary Scholarship, and this scholarship is exclusively for girls. So the girls can only apply for British Council India 70th Anniversary Scholarship. It is a one-year master's program in a STEM subject, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics at a prescribed UK university. Because in this case, they will select the university and they may have already selected certain courses. So you can choose among which university, which course you want to do, and you can apply for this British Council India Scholarship. It is not a fully funded program. You will only get the tuition fee. The tuition fee will be paid. You must know the fact that among Europe, the UK is the country with the largest tuition fee amount. When you take into INR, it's around 15 to 20 lakhs for 1 year masters. So in this case, British Council India will only cover the tuition fee. You may not want to pay any fee, but for the living expense, for the travel and for the visa, you may have to take from your own. So what people do is that they will take some people take loan, or some people will take their expense and they will go there and they will do the part-time jobs and they will manage their living expense. So this is the same with great scholarship. But great scholarship is not only for girls, it is open for everyone. So everyone can apply for great scholarship. In that case also, they may have prescribed UK universities and prescribed courses which is availing your great scholarship. And the application will be from November to January. Here also, you may have to submit a university offer letter, or sometimes the university will nominate you. So if you're applying as a fresh graduate to a particular university, if you're accepted by that particular university, they will say that there is a scholarship like British Council India Scholarship for an Indian student, or a great scholarship for an Indian student. We would like to recommend you for that particular scholarship. Then we have to acknowledge them and we have to say that, yes, we are accepting this offer. So the university will directly nominate you for that particular scholarship. Once you are selected for that particular scholarship, the primary selection, you will have an interview. Once you clear the interview, you will get this scholarship. So even though it is not a fully funded program, the steps are much higher than an Erasmus Mundus one. Erasmus Mundus one is primarily based on your SOP, your CV, your transcript, so your OGPA, your recommendation letter. There is nothing more than that. Coming to British Council India or Great Scholarship and Commonwealth Shared Scholarship, you may have to give an interview. So you will get your first call, then you have to go for your interview, and then you will they will confirm whether you have the scholarship or not. The next is Commonwealth Shared Scholarship. This is a one-year master's program, fully funded program. I think this is the highest funded program which is available. Commonwealth Shared Scholarship is only available in UK. The application is from November to March. So here also I said you may have to have your university offer letter or a university nomination to proceed to your Commonwealth Shared program. So the programs that I told, the Erasmus Mundus one, Commonwealth Shared, the great scholarship, the British Council India Scholarship, etc., they are not expecting that return. Okay, it is okay that if you get a job, you can continue there. If you don't get, you may have to return. It's based on that. But in Chevening Scholarship and the INLAC one, they are expecting the return to your home country, and they may expect you to serve your home country at least for 1 to 2 years. This is a particular scholarship, Pemanda Monnappa Scholarship, which is availed on University of Cambridge for a one-year master's program, which is a fully funded one for a South Indian. So this is a very specific scholarship only for South Indian, and it is offered by Cambridge University, and there will be only one person in a year to receive this scholarship. So like this, there will be university specific scholarship, which you may have to dig into. So you have to look into the university, you have to screen the courses, and then you may have to look into university specific scholarship, whether it is available or not. Similar procedure is there for your DAD scholarship also. DAD scholarship also, it is applicable in Germany. You may have to give your CV. There should be an SOP. There is a DAD scholarship format where you have to enter the details. There will be small questions. Why you are selecting this particular university? Why you are selecting? Why we wanted you to be a DAD scholar? Like that, you have to answer such questions. Sometimes they may ask. There is another column where they have to they wanted you to write a small research proposal for DAD scholarship for masters. What you want to do in your masters, what you want to do the research, or in which field you want to do the research in the during your masters. So that is a tricky part in DAD scholarship. So you have to take care whether you want to, you have to make sure where you want to do the research, on which area you want to do the research, and you should have a rough plan, a rough research proposal for that DAD scholarship application. Coming to the visas and immigration, I wanted you to know that for UK, since 2021 summer, since 2021 June, you all will get a 2-year stay back visa once you have completed your master's degree. In Europe, you may get your stay back from 1.5 years to 2 years. It depends on country. In Germany, it is 1.5 years. In Denmark, it is 2 years. So the stay back period is 1 to 2 years in the Europe. So if you manage to get a job there, sometimes the employer will allow you to work and they will avail you with a work visa. So in that case, you can work in that particular country till your visa expires. Otherwise, they will only avail you 1.5 to 2 years of stay back. And for that stay back, you may have to give an extra money for the stay back. So sometimes once you get graduated, you may not come across any job out there right moment. You can extend your visa to 2 years and you can find a job, and then finally you can get a work visa. So that is the case in Europe. So the maximum stay back is 1.5 to 2 years. Coming to the part-time job opportunity, even though if we have a full stipend or not, most of the students who go abroad will do part-time job opportunity. It is actually an exposure to the international culture. It is actually an exposure to build your connections, etc. So it is ideal to have an international driving license if you're going, because it will be easier to get a job with an international driving license. They will have a visa work limit. It depends on country. It starts from 20 hours to 30 hours per week. And if you don't get a part-time job opportunity in a particular place, like you may work in restaurants, you could work in care homes, you could work in franchisees, you could work in the gardens like botanical gardens, and you could work with the research people out there. And sometimes the university will offer you university job, that is demonstrator. Demonstrator is actually, you will be like an intern. You may have to assist an assistant professor or a teacher there to conduct the lab or to conduct the field work for the smooth conduction of the lab or practicals, or an event like a seminar or a workshop. You may have to assist a particular faculty out there. So that is university job, that is demonstrators. As a PG graduate, you will get the demonstrator job. As a PG student, you will get the demonstrator job, especially in UG labs. So that is one options out there. Then NGOs within your field. You can work with different NGOs, different reserve areas. Sometimes they will ask for volunteer work. Sometimes they will ask for paid internships like that. So that is a part-time job opportunities out there. And the part-time job opportunities also depend on the place where you're going. If you're into a city, it is easy to get a part-time job. If you're in a village area or the area is not populated or don't have much facilities, then to earn a part-time job, it would be difficult. So it also depends on that area. So there are a lot of other factors which actually depends for your opportunities out there. So from an experience, this is a small experience that I received from an officer. He's working in FAO, forestry officer. He did his PhD in UK and he came back to India. He worked as an assistant professor here. Then he received a call from FAO, Food and Agricultural Organization. and he became a forestry officer. Right now, he served around 7 to 8 years in FAO headquarters in Italy. So what he said, from his experience, an abroad education will help to diversify your skills. It will be advantage to get the skills, to use the skills and facilities which is actually available for students like us, and we will be exposed to such events. And one of the things that actually came true in my case is that exposure to reputed university will improve your network. Definitely, it will improve your network. If you want to be in your research career, this is going to improve your network. You're going to meet new people. You're going to meet big names in the particular field, and you will get the chances to intern with international organizations. So, from my experience, I got this internship opportunity once I graduated from Bangalore University. So it was like I really wanted to do an internship in an international organization, and I really think the abroad education has given me an edge to get selected for that internship, because all my colleagues are having an abroad education. So I think that is one of the reason to that is one of the key point to get into international organizations for internship positions or other consultancy works and all. And we will learn a lot of skills as possible. We will make ourselves better. We will learn again and again. We will think, we will change our thought process. So it is a great experience. And yeah, these are some of the sources where you can look into the different scholarship. One is MHRD website, one is British Council India website for various scholarship. For all the scholarships available in UK, British Council India website is fine. MHRD website will give you information on Commonwealth scholarship, which is available in UK and also in other countries like New Zealand. And you will also have the QS World Ranking for screening the university and screening the courses. You can screen according to the subject. So if you want to diversify other than forestry like GIS or modeling or something else like MBA, you can look into the QS World Ranking and you can select the universities. So and there are other scholarship positions, etc. There are different websites which is available for you. Besides this, Erasmus Mundus website is important for Erasmus Mundus scholarship and different courses available there. And you can, once if you have screened the university and courses, just go into the university portal and dig deeper to get the scholarships applicable to that particular course. You won't get that information in any other platform. You have to find those from those by yourself. That is one thing that I have to tell. And it is a great opportunity. It will change your life. It will change your attitude. And if you want to be in your academic career, it's a great opportunity. Go out into the world and shape yourself. It's a holistic development, not only in academic one, it's a holistic development. Thank you so much. I would like to take this opportunity to thank FCRI, Dean Ma'am and Arjun sir for conducting such an event and inviting me for that. Thank you so much. If you have any queries, please shoot. Thank you.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. It was pleasure that we are able to hear such sweet words from you regarding this MSc activity in abroad, and it was a great detailed explanation that I can say regarding the aspects of scholarship, college selection, and we were hoping, we thought this would have been some earlier so that we can be benefited, but however, we'll try to make it better. And I think it is very good, useful session for our juniors. Actually, I'm from the final year, and so we'll try to make out the best out of what you have said. And I think this is a great understanding for all of us. Thank you for having this session, ma'am, and hope we would have such good sessions on and on. And also congrats for you that video that you have made from the college where you're pursuing masters now. We have seen that video. That was so nice, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure to share what I came to know. So it was an opportunity to share what I came to know and from my real experience. So if you have any queries, you could ask me why I took a second master's or whatever it is, because I could really tell what is the situation out there. That is why I was being honest. We can't guarantee any job once you complete your abroad education. You have to find your own space. So you have to cut your own space. You have to make your own space out there. Once you reach there, it's it's a higher level.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Any questions?
Um, a very good evening, ma'am. My name is Percy Rebecca. I'm here to just tell a formal vote of thanks, ma'am. This was really a great session, ma'am. Of course, me and my friends, we came here with a lot of confusion and to which stream we have to choose and all. But I'm quite enough, we are confident enough, to do and to select the stream which we are willing to. And of course, ma'am, like if we are going to abroad out of Asia, it is like a thing of confusion and fear, ma'am. But thank you so much for your pro tips, like how to acclimatization and how to be responsible and everything, ma'am. And my friends and I have like a passion kind of thing to study and go to abroad, but we really don't have any idea how to begin with and where to apply, how to apply, and even career aspects, which is so related to forestry. Uh, and thank you so much for even explaining the minute things like how to mail, CV, resume, and everything, ma'am. And I once again want to thank you for telling from the beginning to the end, like application and streams to scholarships and part-time jobs and everything, ma'am. I hope to have another session with you after our PG also. And thank you so much, ma'am. I personally want to thank for everything. And after the session, at the end of the session, we are like so confident to apply and study abroad. And I hope from FCRA there will be many students to go out abroad and to study. And hoping that we'll also give some sessions to our upcoming juniors. And thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I wish to see that.
So I guess there are no questions because they all know you personally. I think they will be asking you personal messages through personal messages. So I think that's all from our side. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Arjun sir, shall we end the session now?